Hello there, great person, and welcome back to Let's React to Warhammer 40k. Why am I wearing this? You're asking in summer. Well, that's why, because you are watching this in summer, but I record this near Christmas, and I'm recording this so you will see this at my 1-year anniversary of Warhammer content, and I'm gonna put it off now because it's gonna be hot AF. Anyway, today we will finally do The Emperor of Men 2. It is called Heresy and the Imperium, and it's by Luetin. And I think the first part is the third video I ever watched, and I can't wait for this. So we will hopefully see a bit of the Horus Heresy here, and it has a part 3, as I see just now. So you will get that perhaps on New Year's Eve. I don't know. I will get it out soon. Also, don't forget to check out my Christmas wish video. I talk about the future of the channel a bit and the past, and thank you all. And I think it's a cool little video if you wanna like chill a bit, hear me talk a bit about the channel and what I think and my philosophies of reacting to stuff. Don't know, check it out. It should be around here. Anyway, let's just start. Consider liking and subscribing. Also, thanks to my patrons, I now have a Patreon. You will get reactions earlier there. So it's probably mostly interesting for anime reactions. But if you want to support me a bit, you can join me there. And there are several tiers, and every tier is the same. So just like if you want to support me with money, like choose what you want. Like if you want, like you don't need to. Just to make sure, so you know why there are 3 tiers that all are the same. Like it's, I don't know. Anyway, let's just start the reaction. We're almost, by the way, at 4,000 subs. 4,000. It's like a 10th of the 40th. I'm sorry, you know what I mean. So thank you all for supporting me through this year, and thank you also for watching these videos. It was so much fun with Hell's Reach, with Baal, we had Cadia. We had so much fun. We had the Last Church. Man, the Last Church. Last Church was one of the best pieces of writing I've read this year. I think the best one, next to the One Wheel of Time chapter. That was so awesome. Like, that was like one of my favorite videos I did this year. Last Church. Thank you so much for recommending that. I will soon do the Ember King videos. I will try them out. And we'll have some fun with it. Also, Deathcore was recommended by another creator I have not yet tried with good voice acting. So let's see what they do. And I've rambled again. I'm sorry. We will now start the video, have some fun with the Emperor, and see where this goes. So enjoy it, and let's celebrate 1 year of Warhammer content here on this channel with a great Emperor video. And if you hear my daughter yawning or something, she's right there, watching with me, celebrating. Of course, not watching at the screen. So we will see what we have today. And let's just go. Yeah, let's just go. Yeah, let's just go.
Doch ich frag mich, wer wir sind.
Yeah, so apparently I already watched part 2 and 1 of this, so I think I forgot about part 2, but I just titled it differently. So today we're about to do part 3, The Imperial Lie, which is very intriguing. Let's see what they've got for us. Of course, subscribe to Luetin if you like this, yeah, watch his video first, always. Like, watch the original content first. I will just react and comment, so please make sure you give them the view and like. So let's go. Good old Luetin. Good old Luetin. In Siege Studios. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Ooh, I love the soundtrack here. Very eerie. But that's to be expected from this. The Emperor will damn your species to what? Oh my. Key isn't working. Oh no, it's working. Denying humanity its birthright as the chosen children of the gods. Chaos gods? He wages war against divinity, shrouding your species in ignorance that will damn you all. Ingethel the Ascended, demon prince of chaos. Yeah, I mean, I get that. That's their perspective. The warped perspective?
He's not only loath to have treacheries against the gods, but the anathemic to all human life.
He is the anathemic to all human life. Yeah, why would he be that? Oh, I love the music in the background. It's so eerie. It fits the mood perfectly. Still the Demon Prince. Emperor of Man, Part 3. Ooh, it's Ashen Rain. Oh god, and we see glimpses of chaos and horrors. Oh, it's the spider asshole. Oh god, I hate that. There he is. Go to Uriah now. I love that. It fits so perfectly that this is the 50th, the anniversary, the 49th video, almost the 50th anniversary video with Uriah again, my favorite story of all of Warhammer.
His period for mankind, one man would come to the fore. He would unite the tattered remnants of humanity and would rise to become the leader of all. His wisdom and strength unrivaled, his mere presence inspired loyalty. Any other names are all now lost to the mists of time. He is now known only as the Emperor.
Yeah. By the way, I'm sorry I paused here, but I'm glad I didn't watch this actually a year ago, because then I wouldn't have really enjoyed The Last Church. Because now, the way I watched Last Church, I didn't know what I was getting into. You know, and here I would have gotten a, like, summary, so it's good I didn't watch it actually.
Thousands of human worlds have been ruined by the warp storms amid the aftermath of the Great War versus the Men of Iron.
Yeah.
Human survivors remaining on these planets of anarchy lived in fear. Fear of scavengers, raiders, blood-crazed cannibals, and on many worlds the fear of nightmarish demonic incursion.
Yeah.
They feared as their primitive ancestors once had, more than anything, the night, the darkness.
Wow, that's so cool. Don't you always fear the night? I mean, we don't fear the night because it's dark. We fear it because there could be something in the dark. I don't know. Do you have that fear of the dark? Like let's say you are in a room. Yeah, my daughter is here with me, of course, as I said. I think. So she commented on yes, that is. She can imagine that. So imagine you're in a room, very rundown room. It's night outside. Yeah, and there's a door. There's a door on the wall in front of you, and the door opens, and beyond the door is just darkness, like only darkness. You look into the dark, you feel there's something outside the door, and then you close it, and when you almost have it closed, there's some like resistance. Can't close it completely. There's something on the other side. I guess that's something you're afraid of. I mean, we develop fire and stuff, not only, of course, as a measure, to counter the darkness, but it's one of its purposes to make the light lighter.
Darkness promised only horror, bloodshed, screaming, death, and extremes of violence.
Darkness is such
Across many
a
planets,
cool
though,
symbol of death
terror,
and
not all lived in squalor.
horrors.
Some had forged noble houses or settlements who were able to support large defensive forces. hulking warriors forged in global wars as mankind fought as it had done many thousands of years before for territory, resources, and the safety of its own people.
History repeats.
On Terra itself, many had begun to see a new army marching, an army of thundering giants. Clad in magnificent and powerful armour, they had crushed and swept away any who stood against them.
It's so cool. Thunder warriors, they look so badass.
All ravaged the planet, and most importantly, old tyrants, dictators and despots were exterminated, and those citizens who remained would pledge to the singular service of this military campaign's architect. The Emperor would stand triumphant on his home, the world of mankind's origin. The death and conflict here would slowly come to a close, for there was no one left to conquer, and more.
You know what? Would that work? Like, realistically speaking, I don't know. I'm like asking. Because I know Caesar tried that. If my half knowledge from school, like, and that's been like 20 years or more when I learned it in school, so I might be very, very rusty. But I think Caesar, when he did his crusade, when he went around Europe, the mistake he made, and I think my primary teacher, a school teacher, taught me this. When they went around Europe, like they conquered city after city after city after city, but they never stayed. Like they installed some encampments everywhere, but like they didn't really, went there with their own people and like did these things, settle there really. I know there are some remnants. I know there is an old Roman encampment some 100 kilometers from where I live, and it's beautifully preserved, and they dig it up a bit still, and they have reconstructed stuff. But as far as I know, there's not a lot of Roman in Germany. Like they didn't come here and create their culture as a... Not created, like they did not put their culture here with like monuments and stuff. And if they did, I don't know, actually. I've not seen them. And I'm like when I was young, I was a real fan of Romans, like as a child sometimes is. And I wanted to know more about them. And like we went to Rome when I was a child, and there were all these temples and ballistas and all the forums, and they were all left over, and you saw their traces everywhere. And in Germany, you don't. And I think in France, you also don't. Like somewhere there's like a bridge somewhere that's still a bit preserved, or I don't know. And I think what you would need to do is establish your culture there as well. Like not only beat them and let them swear to you, but make them understand that your culture is the better one, if you think so. And you can think that, like, can make arguments for your culture being better than another. It's like, perhaps it's right, perhaps it's wrong. Who knows? Not gonna judge that, but you would have to, you would have to think about that. If you conquer a country or a continent or a world or a universe, solar system, you need to have a long-term plan. And let's see what he does. I hope they talk to me about that. I suspect it's the faith, that he will take away faith and install something new that everyone can agree on. That might be a way.
Importantly, no one left to question the validity of this imposing golden figure of a man. Uriah Olather was a simple man.
Yeah, Uriah, you are such a Chad.
A priest by virtue of personal experience.
I think Uriah is my favorite person in the Warhammer 40k universe currently.
Not wholly indoctrination. A man who had long ago seen this army of giants marching against those who had once favored
when he was
night,
young,
for it shadowed their evil deeds. But now they feared it as much as those they had hunted. The end of these dark times should have been something for celebration, to rejoice and be thankful for, not for Uriah. His services had once been popular, but no longer. Along with the victory of this powerful army came a wave of disbelief and ridicule for those who believed, those who had faith. Where people once had fear.
Yeah, that is as well. I love that about the story, the faith thing. You need some kind of faith, and I use faith loosely here. Like, you can have faith in your beliefs. Like, that's what I mean. Like, faith in your beliefs. And beliefs don't have to be religious. Like, just your beliefs. Like, perhaps you believe, I don't know, Perhaps you believe the family is the most important thing. Perhaps you believe friendship or compassion or love for your neighbor, or I don't know. I know those are also sometimes religious, but like you have some core value. One single one. And most people probably don't think about that. I don't know. Have you thought about it, what your core value is in life? But there is a core, and that's your core belief. It's not necessarily religious, but often nowadays, because I think in religion they probably like ironed that out a lot with talking and rituals and like stuff, and like, you know, created societies where like the core beliefs were aligned so they could work together better. Don't know though. But yeah, I love that thing. And now the emperor takes it away and he has to replace it with another thing. And he is like, yeah, don't believe in anything. And yes, religious, perhaps not, but you will take up something else. I don't think there is a single person on this planet that doesn't believe in something. And if it's not a religion, it's something else. Perhaps it's yourself. Perhaps it's your, like, I don't know. There is something you believe in. Like, and as I said it, I don't mean believe in as in religious. You believe in some core value, you know? So, and the emperor's like, yeah, man, you don't believe this. Like there's a hole he ripped into them here, with making them like be like ridiculing religions, and so the hole had to be filled, and here it was filled with the emperor in the end. But I probably take it away from him here. He's gonna tell us. But yeah, I also liked Uriah when he was young, that he was rebellious and tried to go against the emperor's army and like got completely fucked, like because it was so strong.
Protection, now they feared no more. His congregation had dwindled and then all but ceased, yet he remained.
Yeah, the revelation on the battlefield, it's such an awesome scene in the Last Church. I'm a bit sad he doesn't name the story here, because that story is worth reading. You should read or watch or listen to that story. It's one of the best stories I've read. Last Church. Awesome.
Uriah waited for his midnight service, once popular, now rarely attended.
Yeah, so he's recounting it.
Licking the walls as the rain steadily drummed against the roof, and the
I will actually watch it, so I will put a timer down where you know it's finished, because I think it's finished here.
The walls of the church.
Sorry. Yeah, it's finished after like half an hour or something. Yeah, because I will recap it a bit, add on some things. But if you're like, yeah, if you've watched my Last Church reaction, don't want to perhaps bore yourself, I will probably talk about different things again as well. But you know, I will put a stamp. You can skip ahead. But yeah, let's go. Can't wait. I love this story so much. Thought about it a lot, many times.
But unwelcome ones. As the door swung open, he would see darkened figures lit only by the occasional flashes of lightning outside.
Yeah, they're coming for the Last Church.
But he did feel a troubling sense of unease. These were not men of faith, they were men of violence.
You know what I would love to do? I would love to argue a religious person and an atheist, both of them. I would love to argue them at the same time. And with argue, I don't mean like confront them, but I would love to talk to both of them about what they think belief is and what their values are and how they see it, and then like poke at like try to find weaknesses and poke at them to see where they I don't know. I would think that is interesting. You know, I've watched a lot of debates in my life between atheists and religious people, and sometimes the atheists just stomp the religious people. Sometimes the religious people stomp the atheist as well. There were videos like that. And I find that so interesting, but I never had the occasion to really talk to people. Because I've been through all of that, I think. And I think I said it in the Last Church as well, but I will say it here again, because if you haven't watched that reaction. So I was a very strong Christian when I was a little child. Not by force, but by choice. I loved the stories of the Bible. I wanted to hear them all the time. I especially loved the catastrophes. I loved the flood. I loved the plagues. because, like, I don't know, perhaps I always liked horror a bit. And then when I was like 14, 12, I started to become a complete atheist because I discovered science and I started loving science. Like I knew about science since I was 6 or so, read science books, but I really understood. I thought I didn't. I thought I understood science by the age of 12 or 14. And with that, my religious beliefs were basically washed away completely. Like I became an atheist. I still went to, I don't know what it's called, church training. Like you go there and then you get I don't know, you go there once a week and have like talks with the reverend, and then in the end you like get welcomed into the what would you say, community of faith. You know, I went there. It was cool. I liked the people because I knew them from very young age, and I liked our reverend, both of them, and I really respected them still. Like even though I was an atheist, pretty much, but I went there because I remembered the fun times I had as a child there. Like it was always a pleasant time to go to church for me, or to the children's church, and like, but I pestered them with questions, and I did it respectfully. Like I wasn't like, yeah, you're stupid. I was like, but how did that work? Yeah, how could you walk on the water? How did that really work? And they talked to me because they also they knew me from when I was like 2 years old, and they tried to talk to me as well, and it was interesting. And then there came a point when I was like, perhaps 6 years ago, I started to change again. And I'm now of the opinion that there are values you have in life you believe in, and that's belief. And many common values are ingrained in religions just because that worked. And that's why I think religions are important to know about, at least, to know about their values, and you can still disagree with them. But you then have to see if you disagreeing with the values of the religion you are like going at the moment, if that brings you more in life or not. Like, and perhaps it does, perhaps it doesn't. And that was a tangent, but just so that's where I am currently. Like, I love religious stories. I love the things they tell us about life and how you might possibly act. And I love that. So I'm kind of meta-religious. Like I believe there are values and things we do in society and for ourselves, of course, as well, that bring us forward, that do us well, so we are mentally well and physically as well, well. So like that's where I'm currently at, and I love love listening to people telling me about religion and their thoughts, but also about atheists. And unfortunately, many atheists think they understand science and they don't, which is a shame. But yeah, I would love to do that. I would love to talk to an atheist. So sad that I don't have the possibilities to interview an atheist and interview a religious person and ask them very hard questions, fair questions though, not gotcha questions. So I would love that one day. Perhaps I will do that on the channel one day, down the line, several years, if the channel still exists then. But it's something I would love to do because I just love new ideas, and I love people telling me truthfully what they value and believe. And anyway, that's a tangent. That was a tangent, sorry. Oh, God. So if you're still here, let's continue Uriah's story.
Uriah tried his best to welcome them. The hooded figure who stepped forth into the church sternly declined and closed the door to his companions outside. Uriah introduced himself as Uriah Olather, the last priest
he looks so
of the Church
scary.
of the Lightning Stone.
I love that.
The strange man explained that his name was unimportant, but that he could be referred to as Revelation. They would briefly discuss the artistry of the church and sit to share wine. The strange figure wore clothes much like any other, but his were immaculate. He wore a robe of crimson red and a silver ring with a strange marking upon it.
Yeah.
A device even. Revelation had already explained to Uriah that the reason he visited tonight was so as to be able to view this church of his, the last church on Terra.
And it's so cool. Last church on Terra. And Uriah is not actively fighting him. Like, he's arguing against him, and he has got several very good points. But the Emperor also has several very good points. Like, it's a very well-written dialogue. Like, you get both sides represented equally well, I feel. And, yeah, Uriah is not, like, hateful or disdainful really against him, because he's old and wise. I love that.
History would soon consign these places of worship as relics of the past. He questioned Uriah as to why he still chose to remain. Why did he not want to join with so many others who had heard of this emperor and his crusade to extinguish all forms of religion, spirituality and mysticism, to erase the misplaced beliefs in the supernatural? Uriah was defiant. His beliefs were his own and his faith was unmovable.
That, of course, are two things to me. Supernatural and religion. Because I think a religion can turn very, very terrible when you think about it as, like, if you think there are supernatural things there. And not about, like, stories about what humanity is. And you can quickly get into, like, frenzy mode or zealot mode then, and it's very scary. Like, you could think that there's an entity that is called God that is watching you right now. Like, scary stuff. And people get scary then, so...
Cared not, even if the forces of the Emperor came here to tear down and destroy his church. No warmongering despot could shift his strength of belief. Revelation called him obstinate. Uriah called it faith. Mocking him, Revelation stated, "A willing belief in the unbelievable without proof?" Uriah fired back, "What makes faith so powerful is that it requires no proof. Believe."
I think I talked about the proof thing in the last church, but a proof has to be enough proof for you. Like, there's no proof. Like you can't prove anything in science as well. Like, you can only falsify. And many people, that is one of the things I'm talking about when I say people don't understand science when they're atheist. They're like, show me proof of God. You can't prove God. You can just disprove him, if you can. And you can't do that. So, I mean, but, like, you can falsify information, but you can never really prove something. You can prove stuff in mathematics. That's the only thing. You cannot prove stuff in physics. Like, let's take the Higgs boson. You can't prove that it exists. You can't. You can just say it's very, very likely, and we agree that saying it exists brings us farther, and it seems to work, so we will accept it as the current state of knowledge. But there might be no Higgs boson. But there probably is, but there's no proof. There's evidence. And I've, in my lectures, I've seen people confuse that. Because in Germany, actually, proof and evidence is the same word. And that brings people, like, that confuses them. So evidence is not the same as proof. You can have evidence for God, but you can debate that evidence. You can have evidence for the Higgs boson, but you can debate that. People did. A friend of mine who's a professor at CERN, and he was there in the 80s, I think, when they thought they found the Higgs for the first time, I think. And he was like, yeah, there was this working group of scientists, and then they said they found it. And we looked at their data, and they said, there's the evidence, it's there. And there was an error in the data, or an error in their evaluation or something. And but they had sent in a paper about it already, and that was a pretty hard shit show, I think, in the community there. Like, you wouldn't know that in the public because, like, no one cares for failures or stuff really. But that was something very interesting. And he said, like, yeah, and they had, I think, 3 sigma. Like, you have sigma, like it's the probability that there is really something you measure. Like, because you measure, like, data points, and you are uncertain about where exactly your value lies that you measure. Like, let's take, I don't know, let's take this remote. Let's say I measure it with a ruler, it's 25 centimeters. How sure are you? Is it 25, or is it 25.1, or is it 25.0001? Like, how sure are you? In science, you always have to say. Like, you cannot just say this remote is 25 centimeters. Like, you will not get anything published then. If you say this remote is 25 centimeters, and I'm very, very sure it's like plus minus 0.1 centimeter, then you would get published. And then in the end, you can estimate what range your results are in, and you can also estimate how likely they are true. You know? And yeah, that's evidence. Like, you can have strong and weak evidence in science. And if you apply science to religion, you can also have very strong evidence that there's no God, or strong evidence, perhaps even for God. But it's most likely strong evidence against God, depending on how do you define God. So yeah, but there's never proof. Evidence. Evidence. Sorry for the lecture. It's important to me because many people confuse those two terms.
Belief is enough. I see now why the Emperor wants rid of it, said Revelation. You call faith powerful. I call it dangerous. Think of what people in the grip of faith have done in the past, or the atrocities committed down the
Yeah, he's basically recounting the story
Politics
now.
has slain its thousands, but religion has slain its millions. If it were not abundantly clear by this point, the darkened figure who had entered the Church of the Lightning Stone was indeed the Emperor himself, setting foot in the last church on Earth to challenge the last priest and test his beliefs. The absurdity of his arguments clear for any to see, given what was to come in the following millennia. From the Emperor would come the Crusades that would crush any who opposed them. In fact,
I love that they are called Crusades. Did the Emperor call them Crusades? Because if he did, he's pretty hypocritical.
Any who were found to have religious beliefs that could not be convinced otherwise or serve some useful purpose were simply slaughtered. Yeah. This was before the time of the heresy, where millions would die in the wars of those without faith and those who were consumed by it. Revelation would apologize for his overtly confrontational tone. Uriah accepted, and they instead would see more of his church. Revelation would listen to Uriah tell its history. Revelation, the Emperor, would continue to challenge Uriah when he revealed the church's most holy artifact, the Lightning Stone itself.
That is such a cool thing. Again, listen to Last Church. That part, I love it, with the Lightning Stone. And the conversations they have there. So awesome.
God? A man martyred here? A young girl received some revelation? Uriah would describe how an old man, thousands of years before, deaf and blind, had taken shelter from a storm below the stone, only for it to be struck by lightning, and curing his ailments, it was said to have had healing properties. The townspeople would build the church around this holy stone. The Emperor, examining the stone, stated, without showing any special interest or emotion, hematite from a banded ironstone formation, exposed by a landslip most likely. That would explain the lightning strike. I'm not being malicious, I'm explaining to you how such a thing could have happened, without any intervention of godly power.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that one. Because it also tells about the story, and I'm not gonna go off. Don't worry, I'm not gonna speak about that again, but the importance is not the stone, it's the story about the stone. Basically, and if you want to know why, watch my reaction to Last Church.
To conversations his Primarch sons would have later in time, where they would repeat his cold and indoctrinated beliefs that all could be explained with science.
Yeah,
Magnus the Red, prior to the turning of so many of the legions to chaos, spoke...
By the way, there's also a thing, I don't know, I probably butcher this, and you have to look it up, I'm sorry. No, either a logical system is, like, either a mathematical system is logical or it is complete, but never both. And I think, is it Wittgenstein? I don't know what it was. And if that is true for mathematics, it's true for physics and it's true for science. So either you know everything, but there are things that don't match and are illogical and paradoxical, or you have always questions still to answer that actually cannot be answered by your way of thinking about them. And that's in mathematics. It's not even physics or science, it's mathematics that says that. So imagine what that means for science, like.
Spoke of the warp and its entities. Because they're nonsense, brother. Gods and demons and sprites and witches, you should listen to yourselves. We call it the ocean. It is a product of galactic harmonics, something to be explored. Some of its manifestations seem to be of a sentient kind, at least in outline, but that is not how things are, the way our minds make it appear, what they conjure to help us understand it. We must do our best to make sense of the vortices, and so what do we cling to? The old figures and archetypes once we used when we were scrabbling around in the dirt.
Yes, but I don't know if I talked about that, but like these archetypes and prototypes are probably something like ingrained in your genetics, like they're they have been so useful in evolution that they were coded into your subconsciousness of every living human. And they come up as these archetypes sometimes because they're so important for survival in some way. Sometimes we don't even know, but yeah. Also, something that's funny, there are literal chaos gods out there. So that, like, there is supernatural stuff. And how can the chaos gods be explained by science? Like, chronomancy is like something like magic already. And psychas are something like magic. Like, they're not a technology, they're pretty much magic. So supernatural even exists in the stories, so it's so funny. I don't know, or am I missing something there? Tell me, please. I never thought of that. It's so funny.
Magnus apparently perceived the warp and its entities early on as nothing to be taken any more seriously than the material realm, easily explained rationally because his views were dictated by the Emperor. Views that placed many
that
of
is so cool. Oh, I see.
In dangerous positions of corrupting manipulation. Yet we see these strongly held principles of the Emperor being pushed onto Uria.
Yeah,
the
that's
Emperor,
so cool.
at least through his words, appears to fully reject the idea of spiritual beings by explaining away the lightning stone as mere natural events. He goes on to Uria,
that's so funny in a way.
That a man, especially an already religious man, might perceive that such elemental energy, even if it did have healing properties, would often be seen by your mortal human as something of a divine nature. But that this was something humans do all the time, that they project spirits or fears and dread onto that which they cannot see, onto
that is so important, though. Like, that's the first mechanism of understanding something. Like, throw your theories at it. Like, and if it's the dumbest shit theory you have, it at least is a theory. You can work on that. You just have to keep in mind that you might have to disregard it one day and have to go at it with another one. But throwing that at it is fine. Like, get a first grasp and then, like, work around it and refine it and perhaps, like, throw it away. Perhaps that as well.
The darkness or the night, to sounds and senses that we cannot be sure of, that we fear the unknown as much as we place our faith and beliefs in it. The tone and detail with how the Emperor explains Uria's fixation on the lightning stone being something of divine power somewhat mirrors that of Magnus the Red, Primarch of the Thousand Suns, years later, and it's easy for us to see how the Emperor had imbued these preconceived perceptions into his Primarch sons and his legions.
It's funny that they effed them up in the end.
Of the word bearers, even in the earliest days of the heresy, they would, in the presence of a demon who had shown them powerfully disturbing visions, still display levels of disbelief and flippancy. The Emperor had so carefully taught them into not being so easily able to accept such things at face value, to dismiss out of hand that they could possibly be the truth. Yet in time their ignorance would be their Achilles' heel.
That is so interesting.
To become open to accepting what is known to the creatures of the warp as the primordial truth.
Wow, that's so
bad. His weapon. Instead, he laughed. You are an insane creature. This is the respect you show to a messenger of the gods. What did you expect? That the word bearers would kneel and accept everything you said as divine mandate? Done with kneeling, Ingathal. The resistance of the word bearers to the demon would of course be short-lived. They had already stepped way over the line by this point, but it does demonstrate that, as we know, the transitions and confrontations for many in the traitor legions were not simply about instant corruption, promises of power, or being just casually rolled over by the entities that reside in the Immaterium. We well know that there was bitter, fanatical fighting, not just between the established legions during the heresy, but also internally among brothers in their own legions.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, hypocrisy, let's go. Love that one. That's such a cool theme.
The Emperor spoke with Uria, who was more and more aggravated by the poking and questioning of this revelation, whoever he was. If I am adversarial, it is because it infuriates me to see the blinkered willfulness of those who live their lives enslaved to such fantastical notions as are contained in that book and others like it. That damnable piece of thunder in your hands, that book, is 9 centuries worth of agglomerated texts and assembled, rewritten, translated and twisted to fit the needs of hundreds of mostly anonymous and unknown authors.
But that's exactly what it needs to be.
Life? If a man claimed his dead grandfather was speaking to him, he would be locked up in an asylum, but if he were to claim the voice of God was speaking to him, his fellow clerics might well make him into a saint. Clearly, there is safety in numbers when it comes to hearing voices. Uriah spat back
so
at this
bad.
abrasive figure that had invaded his sanctum. This is my faith you're talking about. Show some damned respect. Why should I? Said Revelation. Why does your faith require special treatment? It's not robust enough to stand some questioning? Why should you and your faith be singled out for special treatment? I have seen God, hissed Uriah. If you have had such experience, you may believe it was real, but do not expect me or anyone else to give it credence, Uriah. Just because you believe a thing to be true does not make it so.
Yeah,
Uriah
that's true.
maintained his account of having seen and felt God himself and would...
But, yeah, by the way, this might be a bit controversial, but there is like not really truth and false. There is just true enough. So if you think something is true and it works, like that's good, and it might not work again. It might not work anymore one day, and then it suddenly will become false. Like basically, that as well something we misunderstand about science. We think science digs at some things that are true. But science just tries to make it true enough, so to speak, and good enough. Like every theory and model we have is good enough to explain certain stuff. And if we can't explain something, we need another one. Never finished. Always searching for more. And so there is no scientific truth that doesn't exist. I don't know where that notion comes from that science is finding truth. Science is searching for truth. But never finding it, but getting closer and closer, so...
reference of youth. Where by now the thunder armies of the Emperor had already subdued most of Terra, yet the young Uriah decided he would attempt to find corners of the world not yet conquered by this so-called Emperor.
Yeah, he became a rebel.
Yet everywhere he travelled he found only towns and people that were already subdued, giving praise for the Emperor, albeit seemingly with a hollow sense of loyalty. It would not be until years later when he would travel to the land of the Frank and there find a people who had murdered their appointed governor of the Emperor. The townspeople wanted no part of this so-called Emperor's rule, and a hastily organized civilian militia slaughtered.
I will actually skip over this, I think, because I know
that the army of thunder and lightning was carnage, tearing.
Yeah, they just go to war with him, and then he sees him
tormented, wailing, slowly crying and wounded in the dark.
Yeah, it's just the battle.
To travel home.
Yeah, you know, because I've reacted to this, and I will not be able to say anything more to this battle probably. Where's the vision? Is the vision somewhere here? No, I think it's
hostility. Only when faith loses its force can a society hope to become humane. They would argue back and forth, Uriah maintaining that much of a religion's doctrines and texts are not
I think this is okay.
Literally.
Like because we saw last church.
Surely the whole point that people will pick and choose, and the subsequent confusion that will inevitably arise from such selective reading amounts to an entirely personal interpretation. Worse, those that do take the texts absolutely literally would usually create misery and death.
Yeah, that is
true.
That is true, yeah.
The absolute truth, set in stone, to be unquestioned and strictly executed.
Oh yeah, you look like an asshole.
The Emperor would recount more ancient histories, from human sacrifices to wartime horrors committed in the name of religion. Bloody wars where thousands would die. Uriah dismissed this as ancient ways long since forgotten, to which the Emperor balked. He pivoted to a more recent event describing death camps and eugenics committed by Cardinal Tang only 30 years previous to their current time.
Yeah.
Uriah had had enough. You fixate on the blood and the death revelation. You forget all the good that can be achieved from faith. If you think religion is a force for good, Uriah, then you're not seeing the superstitious savagery that pervades the history of our world, said Revelation. It's true that just before the descent of Old Night, religion gradually lost its power over life, but like the worst kind of poison, it lingered and fostered division amongst the people of the world that endured, without belief.
That is true, though. Different religions create so much tension and war. I mean, I don't have to tell you that right now, but... And the question is that justified? And that's a bad, dark question, and I'm not going to answer it, of course, but you could make an argument for it and against it. And, like, let's make an argument against it, like everyone should live to their own beliefs and be free, which is a Western value. But also those who don't adhere to freedom and expression and personal liberties, they should not have those as well. Like, if you are against freedom, you should not have freedom yourself. You know, so that's I guess those are the two arguments. There might be better ones, like I'm not saying those are the core ones, perhaps, but I mean, those are two things you could look at in these questions. I have an opinion on it, but I'm not gonna go into that here. But yeah.
Belief in gods, divisions blur with passing ages, new generations adapt to new times, mingle, intermarry, and forget ancient wounds. It is only belief in gods and divine entities that keeps them alien to one another, and anything that divides people breeds inhumanity. Religion.
Yeah, but different religions, and I'm very, very, very roughly summing it up only. Believing in different religions is believing in different values. So if you fight a religious war, two values fight, two looks on the world or views on the world that say how you should move in the world and how societies and people should be are fighting. And you contend with each other to see which one should survive. It's evolution, by the way. That's evolution. Religious wars are evolution of societal structures. So who won the evolutionary battle? If two religions fight and one wins, that religion was apparently perhaps the one that was better fit to survive. I guess. I don't know. I mean, of course, there is things like random events that might, of course, interfere and stuff. But basically, that's like, I think that's pretty certain. I think religious wars are wars of societal evolution. And not only religious wars, but wars of values as well. Like the communist versus the capital, like America versus Russia in the Cold War. That was also a war of values. Every war is that, I think. If it's like, not every war. Like some wars are just because petty assholes are petty to each other and countries have to suffer from that. But like these big things, these big societal wars that are really ideas against ideas, they are evolution, I think. And I think you can make that argument pretty well.
Is the canker in mankind's heart that serves such an ugly purpose. Enough, snapped Uria. I've heard enough. Yes, people have done things terrible to one another in the name of their gods, but they've done terrible things to one another without the recourse to their beliefs. An acceptance of gods and an afterlife is a vital part of what makes us who we are. If you take that away from humanity, what do you suggest takes its place? In my many years as a priest, I have ministered to many dying people, and the emotional benefits of religion's power to console them and those left behind cannot be underestimated. There is a flaw in your logic, Uria, said Revelation. Religion's power to console gives it absolutely no more credence or validity. It might very well be a comfort to a dying man to believe that he'll go to some bountiful paradise of endless joy, but even as he dies with a wonderful smile on his face, it means nothing in the grand scheme of things as far as the truth of the matter is concerned.
Yeah, that as well. Like, who cares? If you die happy instead of dying screaming in fear, who cares?
Maybe not.
But I get the Emperor as well.
When my time comes, I will die with my god's name on my lips. There are multiple aspects to read from the discussion between the Emperor and Uria. For one, it's fairly staggering that the Emperor has the gall to recount the many accounts of religious atrocity as examples of why it's such a flawed and dangerous concept for humanity, and that for this, and also other reasons, it's why mankind is better off without it. He makes these statements immediately after he has just sat and listened to Uria recount his own tale of facing down the Emperor's army of giant superhuman warriors. Versus
that is so funny.
What can only be read as being a fairly large, yet seemingly primarily civilian force of angry townspeople. That the Emperor's warriors proceed to not only engage with maximum levels of aggression, but then continue to engage in one of the most inhuman slaughters, brutalizing and committing horrors best not even thought of, and not against a defiant, powerful warlord and his army of trained soldiers. No, they destroyed with no mercy a mob of crying, stunned people who knew that they were defeated as the first shots were fired. You can barely imagine a more inhuman situation. Why this level of violence and display of pure, unfettered aggression was necessary has no explanation. And as they knelt begging for mercy, the Emperor
Yes, it has. He wants to destroy people who don't believe in him, so to speak, even though he doesn't admit it. I know that's like a very complicated thing in a way, like or like complex, no, not complicated, complex thing, but basically he's destroying everyone who's not faithful to him, because he's like, if you're not like if you believe in something else, you like, no, that's wrong. If you believe in me, you will not believe in something else. Don't believe in me, but at least if you believe in me, in something, believe in me. I don't know. It's weird though, yeah. I think the title of titling this hypocrisy is on point, because it is.
Giant warriors to let their bloodlust run rampant, as these monsters often literally crushed under their heavy armored boots anything that moved, until the ground was nothing more than a hellscape, a wasteland of horror. You'd be forgiven for mistaking them for the worshippers of the blood god, for on this day they surely imbued Khorne with a refreshing burst of power.
Yes, they
can
did.
only see these events as shockingly
That's also
hypocritical on behalf of the Emperor. Within almost the same breath, he begins explaining how it is religion that is the terrible enemy of mankind, because through its most extreme beliefs, it can on occasion cause humans to commit terrible atrocities.
And he did as well.
Doesn't counter the Emperor with this astonishing level of hypocrisy is frustrating, yet it also highlights to us that the Emperor is operating from a position that is hardly objective or rational.
That is true, but I guess he's like, it's like if you murder a murderer, the amount of murderers does not decrease, so murder more. You know, that's like his philosophy.
They are simply his talking points to achieve his own agenda, that of removing the very idea of structured religion and spirituality from the human consciousness. As Urya had now essentially turned his back on redemption and returned to his prayers, a golden light would rise from behind him. He turned to face redemption, but was only able to exclaim, "You!
Yeah.
Now do you fully understand the futility of what you do here?" said the golden giant. Urya finally understood, seeing the golden face that he'd seen long ago in his memories as he was near to death, after the horrific battle against the Emperor's warriors. "You are the Emperor." The Emperor tells Urya it is time to go, and they start to leave the Church of the Lightning Stone. The Emperor begins to explain that the artistry within the church is much like humanity, that it is only meant to exist in the light, not reside in the darkness, that only when suffocating shadows of religion are gone will it be able to see again its true brilliance.
It's so funny how he sees religion only as a shadow, like something is almost never only a shadow or only a light. It's always both. It's so funny. Oh, now second fall of humanity. Let's go.
Urya passed through his church as he moved to leave and join the Emperor for whatever fate awaited him. The Emperor all the while telling of how it was that he would create an imperium that would make this church appear like a pauper's hovel in comparison. Urya transitioned quickly from feelings of regret and that his life had been a misguided lie to a renewed sense of self-belief and strength in his faith, even as confused as it had been. Urya, in this moment, had a realization.
Yeah, also he stood up against the Emperor, and from his, at least from Urya's point, he won, or at least he withstood the attacks from the Emperor. He did not waver, and it proved to him that the thing that calls itself God currently and is like, even though he doesn't want people to worship him, like, it's basically calling, like, the Emperor basically called himself God in a way. So he faced that and prevailed and did not falter. So to him, it's like he prevailed against the devil, like the temptation of the devil in a way. It's so interesting.
The Emperor seemed unable to grasp. But the Emperor had made many mistakes through his past and would make many more in the future.
Yeah.
The Emperor is not infallible, flawless, or as perfect as the vision he projects to his followers. Perhaps it's the nature of his origin that makes the Emperor seemingly unable to grasp the necessity for religion having a place in the human spirit.
Wait, that is cool. I never thought about that. If the Emperor projects this perfect image of himself into humanity, and they believe in the perfect image, would an Emperor God be created that's not the Emperor? Like, we've talked about that the Emperor is a god of order, so to speak, in like in a contrast to the chaos gods, like the god of order. But if that thing is created, is it still the emperor? Like, would the emperor transform? Or would another entity be created and the emperor will be like left behind and this perfect thing that was thought up will live? I don't know.
Uriah had allowed the warmth and love of his God to fill the emptiness within him when he needed it most. This was what made faith powerful, that it required no proof, only belief. Its power was in that it needed no understanding at all. He would follow the emperor out into the tempest that his church had kept shut out until now. But as the emperor stepped outside, the howling gale blew in, extinguishing his candles. As he stepped out into the thrashing rain and darkness, lightning illuminated the hundreds of armoured statues outside the church, the emperor's warriors. They stepped forward and proceeded to put fire to the church and throw in grenades for good measure. The emperor watched it burn.
Better be safe.
Uriah protested, but it was in vain. The emperor knew exactly what he was doing and exactly what his plans for humanity were. His imperium had no place whatsoever for gods and spirituality. Uriah argued with the emperor over his vision for the future, declaring him a madman as the emperor laid out his plans to conquer the galaxy.
By the way, a church is not the building only, it's also a place of community. So wherever people of belief gather, it's like a church. It's also, I think, the point in, I think, when was it? Around, like, after Christ's death, at least that's how I was told. It's like they were, like, hunted down, the Christians or the Jews. I don't know who was hunted down, one of those. And they, like, gathered in secret. And wherever they gathered, that was their church. And, yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, burning that down is more of an act of symbolism and not, like, really destroying the church. Even though the objects of like belief, like the holy scriptures they have and the stone are destroyed. So
the warriors standing in their presence were only the precursors, he explained. The warriors he was forging would be the generals and lead the greatest crusade to every corner of the galaxy.
To the future!
Uriah protested. Didn't you just tell me of the bloody slaughters perpetuated by crusaders? Doesn't that make you know better than the holy men you were telling me about?
Oh, yes.
The difference is, I know I am right, replied the emperor.
That's
spoken like a true autocrat.
That is such vanity and such pridefulness, and he fell for that.
Uriah.
Like, fell down. It was
you
a
misunderstand,
fall.
Uriah. I've seen the narrow survival path that is all that stands between humanity and extinction. This is the way it must begin.
Yeah, if he saw a true golden path, and I'm referencing Dune here, of course. If he saw a true golden path, that makes more sense. Like, then, okay, do that, perhaps, to make humanity survive somehow. But if he got a corrupted vision somehow, like, Jesus Christ, that's bad.
This was when Uriah would finally see the truth of the Emperor, and tell him that to deny humanity a thing would only make them crave it more so. And if he was successful, to be wary that his followers do not mistake him for a god, lest they begin to worship him. Uriah could see through the gold and the blinding light now. This was not a god, for he could see the burning ambition and the white-hot core of violence in the heart of the Emperor.
Yeah.
I wish only the best for my people, promised the Emperor.
That I believe.
I think you do, but I will not be a part of it.
But people not in humans, but humanity,
said Uriah. With that, Uriah would turn and walk back into the burning church.
Yeah, Uriah was such a chat
straight
here.
Into the blaze as the flames closed around him. Outside, the warriors watched the church until it collapsed.
I wonder what would have happened if Uriah would have been his advisor here.
The Emperor turned away, saying only, "Come, we have a galaxy to conquer."
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I think if I would have been the Emperor, I would have taken every religious leader I could find, put them like in a, I don't know, the guarded monastery or something where I knew they wouldn't get out, make sure they didn't send messages out if I would like try to cull this religious idea. But still, ask them questions. How would you see that? Because you might be wrong. And he's too prideful to do that, of course. But always ask for other people's opinions, even if you, in the end, go like, yeah, F yourself, that's stupid. And he would probably do that a lot, but he might have stopped some things. But again, if he didn't see that on his golden path, no chance.
The only sound to be heard was the chiming of an old and broken clock.
Yeah, the clock was so cool. I like that clock motif.
The small clock in this story I've omitted until the end as it has a specific relevance and really a tale all of its own.
Yeah, I'm sad that he did, but yeah.
Urrea had owned a small bronze clock, described as having a cracked glass face and clean, delicate hands made of gold with inlaid mother of pearl. Its cogs never turned and its pendulums never swung. He'd stolen this in his youth, where he travelled the earth looking for whatever kind of
he stole it from his father or
he'd come
something.
across. And he'd stolen this timepiece from a silver palace in the mountains of Europa. He recalled how as he had fled this palace, the craftsman who curated the many strange timepieces kept there called screaming after him that the clock was counting down to doomsday and would chime when the last days of mankind.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that symbolism of the clock in the story.
At the time, he youthfully laughed off these eccentric craftsmen's bizarre calls and would gift the clock later to his father. But after Urrea returned to their home to find his family essentially destroyed, he retrieved the clock, bringing it to the Church of the Lightning Stone, where it would make no sound since that day.
Yeah.
Urrea had always dreaded hearing its chimes.
Yeah, it's
and he
so
would never have
cool.
to hear it chime again.
Yeah, it's so cool.
The chiming of the clock as the
Love
Emperor walks
that.
away from extinguishing the last church on Earth is meant to herald the doom of mankind.
And the
But
Emperor.
why? What is its significance? It's clearly symbolic as the last church is burned to the ground and the last priest on Earth has engaged with the Emperor. Each gave one another the chance to side with each other's presented opinion. Instead, they both choose to go their own separate ways. The Emperor with his plans for galactic secular domination, the last priest on Earth finally realizing that it is not the existence of a god in the physical sense that is the true power of faith, but having belief is enough, and nothing would make him regret that.
Yeah.
This clock, though, appears again in the most unlikely of places. Many years
Really?
later, Magnus the Red, Primarch of the Thousand
that's
Suns,
so
would be
cool.
overcome with a powerful vision, a vision of things that could never be. Worlds on fire, battlegrounds of Astartes he saw slaughtering each other with blades and fists, landscapes riddled with scars and corruption, battlefields fought at a microscopic level where only bacteria and viruses remained. As he looked through the putrid nightmarish landscapes, he would find his eyes focus in on something he recognized more clearly, the markings of the lunar wolves and Horus Lupercal. He shouted, but they could not hear him. He would see fragmented and mixed visions of friends and foes, blades striking fatal blows, a strange temple with pillars of fire, and a black pool that appeared as dark as oil. A powerful figure broke through the fractured pieces to coalesce. It was Horus. Magnus inspected it more closely. This thing, it was not Horus. "What are you?" demanded Magnus. "You are not my brother." "Not yet, but soon," answered the monster with a maddening grin. "My brother would never unleash this madness. Then you don't know him, for it is happening right now. The pawns of the primordial annihilator are already in motion, setting the traps of pride, vanity, and anger to ensnare the egos of the knights required to topple the king." "You lie," said Magnus.
That is so awesome.
Laughed Horus. "Horus Lupercal will betray you all. He will set the Imperium ablaze in his quest for power. Nothing will survive. All will become a nuclear cauldron of chaos, from the supermassive heart of the galaxy to the guttering stars in its halo."
Yeah.
"Where will this miraculous transformation take place?" asked Magnus, fighting to keep the growing horror from his voice. "On a little moon," giggled the monster, "in the Davin system."
Yeah.
"Even if I believe you, why tell me? Because it has already begun. Because I enjoy your torment, and because it's too late to stop this," said
Because I'm a troll.
Horus. "We'll see about that," promised Magnus.
And then he charges.
And the Horus monster was gone. Ahriman and the Terminator guards surrounded him, their faces filled with dread. "My lord," cried Ahriman, "what happened?"
Yeah.
Magnus shrugged off any help and climbed to his feet. He could already feel the sands of time moving across the face of the galaxy.
Wow, that's such an awesome
last flash of a
line.
vision of a chiming bronze timepiece with a cracked glass face and mother of pearl hands.
Wow. That is so
The vision of Magnus
awesome.
can be clearer. The meddling form of Horus is very clearly Tzeentch, especially as it is appearing before Magnus the Red. Tzeentch, the meddling god of change, twisting and manipulating. Magnus could not have known the meaning of seeing the chiming ancient clock. It's really just the mischievous
So Tzeentch set it in motion. He created a destiny trap.
and twisted playfulness of Tzeentch at work. And questions remain on who the craftsman back on Terra really was and how he foresaw the accuracy of the clock and its chiming. The two instances are very much connected though. The Emperor himself had a choice. Why did he never warn anyone, not even his prized sons, the Primarchs, of the dangers of the spirits, the entities and gods that resided in the warp? His turn.
Because he would have had to admit that there is supernatural, I guess.
Away from
so
the Church
cool.
of the Lightning Stone on Terra, as its smouldering remains and all they symbolize were left to ruin.
Yeah, he lived a lie.
The Emperor set humanity on a path that rejected totally religion and spirituality and followed only the Emperor's imperial truth. The Emperor had a choice to bestow his knowledge of the chaos.
It's so cool. I like that, because the Emperor lied to himself in a way and to his sons here, and the lie destroyed half the universe. Yeah.
Chaos gods and the warp to his sons, but forbid them from ever attempting to make any kind of dealings with what inhabited the Immaterium. Now, if he had chosen to do this, you could argue that he would have armed them with the knowledge to know of the manipulating and pervasive nature of chaos and better enable
so his vision was also probably Siege's vision in a way, or at least meddled in by Siege or something. Whatever you say, you know what I mean.
Open that box that's marked "Do Not Open" is a recipe for disaster. And I believe this was really the position the Emperor found himself in. If he had forbidden his Primarchs from ever exploring and interacting with these beings or explaining to them the true nature of chaos and his plans for humanity, he ran the risk of them being unable to resist the forbidden fruit. It's the oldest tale of humanity, always needing that thing which you can never have. Making something off limits only makes it far more desirable. It's human.
Yeah, if you wouldn't have forbidden religions, you would have had that story still.
Human nature. So instead, the Emperor opted for his only real alternative, to say nothing and hope for the best. Yet this came with its own problems. The Emperor, via the Imperial Truth, did his best to stave off any kind of dangers that might arise from chaos, yet this was nowhere near enough. Not to mention the fact that, as would later be discovered, the Emperor had not only chosen to selectively impart wisdom to his Primarch sons, but that he had carefully misled and actively deceived them. Under the crushing weight of so many miscalculations on the part of the Emperor, the growing apathy and diminishing sense of respect felt by Horus could only lead to one thing.
War. Imperial truth, let's go.
The Emperor's vision for humanity was one of progression, forward-thinking rationalism, a return to science and logic, as well as a powerful sense that humanity were the ones who were best placed to take on the role as the most powerful race in the galaxy.
Yeah, that's so cool. People think logic is the ultimate thing, but man, logic, there cannot be a logical system that's complete. Or either it's a complete system or it's not a logic. As I said before, it's the same thing. But you know, that's so funny. How can you, we know that already. He didn't know that, apparently.
The Eldar had their chance and failed. The remaining Xenos were abhorrent savages.
Yeah, they
As the
were.
Emperor began his galactic
funny savages, though.
That his imperial truth be brought to all the worlds of mankind, essentially by any means necessary.
Wow.
Peaceful if possible, by force otherwise. The hypocrisy of the Emperor, given his self-righteous rantings against religion, is blinding.
Yeah, it's so funny, I love it.
Against religion, but it caused ignorance and horrific bloodshed when humans interpreted things wrongly or with an extreme perception of the teachings from their religion of choice. Yet on so many occasions, the Emperor shows almost no regard whatsoever for human life.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Far from being a...
That is the thing. People. His people means humanity, not humans.
Benevolent leader who cares for its human species, because remember, after all, the Space Marine Legions were meant to be a tool to bring about the rise of humanity, not a permanent, ever-present military force that would last for tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
In one sense, the Emperor's grand plans seem to have barely got off the ground before it all came crashing down.
Also, by the way, even if you would manage to extinguish religion everywhere and really do that, you need to still have your forces to keep doing it, because it will pop up. Because as far as I know, there are genetic components to that. Because, and this, you might not agree with this, so I will tell you some stuff. I think some of it I told you before in reactions, but some stuff we know and some stuff I conclude from that to make the argument that religions are ingrained in genetics, so to speak. Or at least in core of our biological makeup in a way. not necessarily in the genes, you know, but in the biological makeup we have. So we are pretty sure, as far as I know, that before we had consciousness, like what we had was dreams. Like the first semi-conscious beings, if you call them that, lived as if everything was a dream always, and then it ended and they died. And one day the dreams started to stabilize, to get less like dreamy, and became consciousness. But we still have the dream thing below that. Like it's in every human being. Like there's subconsciousness, there's like this dream state in a way that is like a mediator between subconsciousness and consciousness. And then we have consciousness. So religious images are basically remnants as far as I can tell. And that's like more personal thing. But there is probably also literature on that a bit, because we know there are images we have that are like from the biological makeup that we have in our minds. Like some images then come out are archetypal, and they talked about that. And they come also from this dreamlike state we were in before we got conscious as humans. And it would just pop up. It's in our genes. Like you would have to alter all our genes. And you could argue then if you do that, you're not human anymore. It's not humanity anymore. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments actually what you think about that. But it's interesting.
Despite his crusade in many ways being a success, the whole vision and mission on behalf of the Emperor in the end was a catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
The empire in flames, mass slaughter across so many worlds, return to the darkness of spirituality, persecution, and worst of all, the Emperor in the end left humanity in a position arguably little better off than when he had begun.
Perhaps even worse.
The Emperor is no ordinary man. Exactly what the Emperor is and just how much power and knowledge he had is always something of a grey area.
That is
true,
that the
Emperor is and was a perpetual, and this has been established in one way or another since the very beginning of Warhammer 40,000. And it's very obvious, though, when you think about the fact that he's existed since the earliest times, no matter which origin story you subscribe to. And I am far more open to the shaman sacrifice origin than I had been. However, I still do like the idea that the Emperor is somehow a creation of some final old one. But full disclosure, there is basically zero evidence for that. It's simply a fun thought out loud of mine. Question.
You know what I would love? If the Emperor is something like a god of order that humanity dreamt up in the beginning. But in human form, like in flesh form, not in the warp, like somehow. I don't know how that works, but that's,
As well.
Oh wow, that Necron ship looks cool. I think that's Necron's.
Being whilst on the run. The shaman sacrifice, though, works equally well if you get into the details of it. Really, though, the heart of the matter is that the Emperor is an immensely powerful individual.
Oh, he definitely is.
Where we come to the unclear and hazy aspect is just how is he a perpetual compared to others, say, Vulcan Primarch of the Salamanders? And this is where we risk going off into pretty heavy tangents that deals with the area of the Emperor's dealings with the Chaos Gods and his acquisition of knowledge to create the Primarchs. The long and short of it is that I do not believe the Emperor to be a perpetual in a sense of how it is often described. The perpetuals are just kind of magical entities who somehow come back to life and are basically immortal. If anything, the descriptions often touted for perpetuals are extremely vague, misleading with very little reference, and this also ties into the very notion of the primordial truth. The original explanation for the Emperor...
Primordial truth. What is that? That sounds so cool, but so magical as well.
Following this shaman account was that the warp was a peaceful and calm realm, a mirror of our material space that existed on another plane of existence. It was a neutral and peaceful life stream of spiritual energy. In the early days of mankind, the warp and the creatures within it had not come to any positions of power. Remembering that the warp itself functions not through some sense of religious worship, but simply by being filled with the natural psychic resonant forces, at this time by more passive plants and animals. The activities of others in the galaxy would undoubtedly have begun.
No, I don't agree here. I think it's not calm. I think it's just not good and evil as in men are good and evil and sentient beings are good and evil. It's like it's just a primal field. This is not a calm field. Can't tell me like a bear or a I don't know, a tiger ripping apart something is calm. You know, so if he's talking about the time where there were no animals, yeah, perhaps. But as far as he goes to time where life developed as an animals developed somewhere, no. Already you have like brutality, though it's a different kind of brutality from what human brutality is in most parts.
To fill the warp with more and more troubling energy.
That's also, by the way, at least in Germany, we have two different crimes. We've murder and we've manslaughter, I think is the translation. And manslaughter is in effect, I think, like you just do it by like murder. There have to be things like intention, like this real terrible evil thing has to be there. In law already as well.
Souls of mankind and their obsessive, guilt-ridden, negative energies, where the warp really began to fill. On Earth, the primitive humans had developed a relationship with the warp that they did not initially understand, but over time would begin to realize how to use it. Those who understood this best were tribal shamans who could tap into the warp and use its energy to help heal.
He's just telling us the origin story now. I don't know, I've heard it before. Also, by the way, check out my horror stories. They are like, it wasn't initially the plan, but they would fit as a Warhammer 40k present day story or universe of collected stories where the idea is basically the warp is real. What would it do in our time? What monsters would emerge from human psyche? And yeah, if you want to check it out, link is in the comments. I pinned it there. So it's an audiobook. It's about, I don't know, 5.5 hours audiobook of 10 stories. They are linked, but not directly, so you can listen to all of them. But it's basically the idea, stories set in our time period where something like the warp, and if you want to be, you could say it's the warp, like that would be perfectly fine. I also will put an Easter egg soon into a story where I will give you the my fan origins of the Ranktons, or whatever they were called. And yeah, you know, it's like it's not officially a fan fiction of Warhammer, but it also works as that. Like for me, it's its own thing, but it's not like you could also see it as a Warhammer fan fiction. Like because I wrote it when I didn't know Warhammer, I just like used the same idea as the warp as for all the stories. So kind of makes sense now. So I don't know anyway. Advertisement over.
And provide for their tribes. You could also be reborn from the warp and carried forward into new human vessels. And in many ways you can see how these shamans were indeed the first perpetuals. Because they never truly died, they would be reincarnated. And this is depending on how strict you want to be with your definitions. However, as mankind grew and the disturbances in the warp became more powerful and more aggressive, and this was before even the Chaos Gods, the shamans began to discover that they were unable to be so easily renewed by reincarnation. The warp was unstable. It was becoming...
that doesn't... I'm sorry. Tell me what you think about the theory, but I think that does not fit, because we've got other races like the Eldar who used the warp and who also had problems with it probably. And I don't know, how old are shamans? Like 40,000 years at least? I don't know. I really don't know. Tell me in the comments if you know how old shamans are, but yeah.
Just more challenging, and sometimes spirits would be lost. Fearing that as time had passed this would herald the end of their kind, they decided after many years of discussion to en masse commit suicide, and as they did so, their kind would be gone forever from the earth. Yet they would be reborn as one individual, the Emperor of Man.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
combined powers of the many thousands of psychically attuned shamans, but also begin to remember that...
Like, the mechanisms alone are cool. I like this idea of shamans, but I don't like that the warp was calm there. I think it's more like elders did some weird shit again, and that's what like influenced the warp around Earth as well, and so they misinterpreted it like that.
Their wealth of
that's like my headcanon, if that's true, and I know there is no definite story here. I know that. I know.
Never again having to return to the warp, which would in the days of the future prove to be far too hostile and too dangerous to allow him to be reincarnated were he ever to die.
Yeah, that's the Emperor now. Great.
For me is one reason why the concept of killing the Emperor so he can be reborn is a fundamentally terrible idea, but that should probably remain a separate discussion.
Be careful what comes back.
For us, though, the important information from this version of Earth's ancient history is the idea of the Emperor as a perpetual, that this was gifted to him by the collective reincarnation of the shamans of old Earth. Now, remembering this, we return to the Emperor standing in the Church of the Lightning Stone.
Yeah.
From his own perspective as a perpetual, he cannot fathom the importance or the need some humans have for faith. Nor does he subscribe to the concept of the primordial truth, a truth that at this point he surely well knows.
In a way, this reminds me of Frieren, an anime I'm currently watching and reacting to, which deals with eternal life or long lives and what that means, like what that viewpoint is and how it would work realistically, and how these people cannot understand several things of life, like the beauty of the moment and stuff. And this feels a bit like that as well. I really like that theme. It's a very sad theme, but...
The Emperor is not a god in the sense of a god being all-knowing and all-seeing. He is an astonishingly powerful individual, to be sure, but he makes a catalogue of misjudgments. He also proclaims to be working for the betterment of humanity, as he describes to Uriah outside the Church of the Lightning Stone. The Emperor looked down at him and said, "Some things are best left forgotten." "Then I hope you've foreseen the consequences of a world bereft of religion," said Uriah. "I have," replied the Emperor. "It is my dream. An imperium of man that exists without recourse to gods, a united galaxy with terror at its heart." "A united galaxy?" said Uriah, averting his gaze from his blazing church as he...
Yeah, a united galaxy, like, but you have to put pressure on it all the time, because the religious drive will just wake up again. And with religious drive, I mean like drive for values, drive for a core you have that you like can worship or something. And many people do that with religion because it's like a not a proven concept, but you know, it's something people have like used to success in varying degrees, but to success sometimes, or like in human history. So yeah, of course they default back to believing in the Emperor. Like he has to at least allow that. Like I think that's the best cause, probably them believing in him, even because he knows they shouldn't do it. Like at least he knows that they shouldn't do it. You know,
He's finally grasped the scale of the Emperor's ambition. Indeed, now that unity has been achieved on Terra, it is time to reclaim humanity's lost empire among the stars. "With you at its head, I presume," said Uriah. "Of course, nothing of such grand scale can be achieved without a singular vision at its heart, least of all the reconquest of the galaxy."
Yeah.
"You are a madman," said Uriah. Uriah knew he wanted nothing to do with anything this man had to offer, no matter how noble or lofty his ambitions may be. "I hope in the name of all that is holy, you're right," said Uriah.
Yeah, people who think they are right are the most dangerous in some places. Especially in leadership roles. If a leader thinks they're good and right, Jesus, be afraid of them.
"I dread the future you're forging for humanity." And as we heard before, the Emperor replied, "I wish only the best for my people." "I think you do, but I'll be no part of it," said Uriah.
Yeah, again,
There's
people.
a large part of wisdom on behalf of
as in
Uriah
humanity,
in his final
not
conversation with the
humans.
Emperor. The Emperor also reveals himself to be a hypocrite and far from wishing the best for his people. He's singularly focused on executing his vision for humanity by any means and any cost necessary. Even if that means the slaughter of innocents, then so be it.
Yeah, but that's what I say. It's not people in, like, several people. It's people as in, like, in Germany we have the word Volk. Don't know if you know it. Or race.
However, it appears that
yeah.
Uriah's words may have resonated with the Emperor somewhat, because for as much as the Emperor had declared that his Imperium would operate from a secular position of science, logic and reasoning, there was a strong sense of practices that ran through the Imperium that had more than a flavour of spirituality to them. The terrifyingly powerful presence of his warriors on many worlds were enough to make its inhabitants be awed into thinking they were being visited by some powerful spirits or holy figures.
Yeah, that as well.
Of course, the iterators would arrive to tell them about the imperial truth and how they needed to follow a secular order, but as much as this was true, it still required a sense of faith.
Yeah, that as well. Like, if you go to a planet of, like, backward savages and you're like, hey, believe in science... Oh, this is God who tells me I should believe in science. Like, they don't believe because they want to believe. They believe because they think this is God telling you what to believe because they know better. And like God in a way, that higher being that is perhaps more knowledgeable and benevolent.
Maybe not faith in the spiritual sense, but faith in the Emperor. And this is really where you get into the muddy territory of defining faith or defining gods and defining spirituality. Where are the lines drawn?
Yeah, that as well. Like, that should be the first thing you do. And I know there are memes about that, but if you talk about God, you talk about faith, at least like with someone and you do a discussion, both should agree on a definition. And if they can't, they should talk, because then they're just gonna like talk past each other. And it's like, I hate that. I hate hearing two people talk about something and they both have different views on a word. And I know that sounds weird and stupid, but if you don't start from the same starting point, you like, how can you even talk? Like, it's basic communication skills. Like, it's also something I teach or taught my students in who are like they are all becoming physics teachers, and I talk to them like, if students of yours use words you don't understand or that you think are wrong and incorrectly used, ask them what they mean by them, because they might just not have the right label or something. Like, you have to create a basis of communication before you like argue or say, yeah, I don't agree, you're wrong. For that, you have to understand what the other person is talking about. If you haven't defined something, like, and this thing with faith and God is the problem is of defining God. And yes, some people say you can't. So, like, what are you talking about? You're talking about nothing. Stop talking. Like, what the fuck? Like, in an argument, you can still believe in that. Like, if you can't put it into words, that's fine. It's something different. But I mean, if you're really arguing in a discourse, like only there, like, I'm talking about that. If you argue in a discourse and you don't define what you're arguing about, you've lost. Sorry, you've lost. And if you define it and the other person does not agree and has another definition, you should argue, you should go take the first one and then argue about it, and then take the second one and argue about it. And then you can say like something like, your God or your definition of God, I agree with to this extent and disagree with this. And my version of God, we agree on this and that. You know what I mean? That's like, and no one does that. Never seen that. It's so sad.
Is unquestioning
so
faith
sad. Like so many people, like these atheist versus religion debates. I watched them a lot when I was younger, like in my teens or something, because I wanted to see someone destroyed by words. I hate that so much nowadays. It's so dumb, such clickbait shit. But destroyed by logic and facts. So arrogantly stupid and naive most of the time. Like, some people can do it. Sometimes they really do that, and then it's cool, still cool. But many people nowadays use it as buzzwords, and I hate that. And yeah, because most of the time in those things, like, yeah, they just don't even they don't even define anything. Like, and they talk about two completely different things, and they don't listen to each other then, because they assume the other person is talking about something different. And sometimes you can even feel what the other person meant and stuff, you know, and they're so dishonest then, and I'm sorry, rant over. I hate that. That's why I don't watch those anymore.
Than unquestioning faith in your God. The Emperor, it seems, knew that he could never fully extinguish the desire for humanity to be awed by things that they did not understand, that they had a need to place their faith in beings beyond their comprehension. And through the belief of the imperial truth, preaching
Still need to do that video next year.
The Emperor managed to turn his truth into a faith.
There she is.
And just as Uriah had predicted, it was not long before the Emperor's arguably mixed messaging on imposing a secular rule, yet simultaneously himself appearing as a glowing light of golden godlike purity with a shimmering halo and unbelievable power.
Yeah, it's like saying someone, don't worship anything, I'm cool. You get me? You get what I'm saying? Don't worship anything, but I'm really powerful and cool. Like, but don't no. You know, that's...
It doesn't take a genius to realize that quite quickly some of the faithful are going to be more faithful than others.
Yeah.
And yet again, the Emperor, for all of his apparent foresight and power, could not foresee his own Astartes, first some of them worshipping him, and then slowly sliding into betrayal, and finally...
Yeah, the word bearers, I think, were the ones. Oh, the real imperial truth. Let's go.
The real imperial truth is that the Emperor's war on religion was not singularly about moving humanity from the darkness into the light. The Emperor surely knew that humanity would face as yet unseen horrors.
I think, actually, he wanted to unite them under the same value, basically. And the value was because he embodies his own values. That's basically what I got from it.
He had awareness of these things from his encounters with the Void Dragon, and he knew very much about the gods of chaos.
Yeah.
His suppression of religion seems in part on the same track as his ban on any AI development. He knew that the consequences for allowing either could be potentially catastrophic.
Yeah, it could.
And it's worth just highlighting something I see far too often incorrectly described. The Emperor didn't oppose religion because he thought that somehow this would diminish the powers of chaos. Why would it?
Yeah, I never got that impression though.
Starters, chaos doesn't work like that. The warp doesn't work like that. The warp is a realm of resonating spiritual energy that mirrors real space, the materium. The warp being the immaterium. So praying to your gods is not going to have some direct, huge effect, and so neither would be removing that. What the warp thrives on and is fueled by is human emotions, ambitions, and desires.
Yeah.
This is why on Chaos ships you don't have huge prayer chambers. You might instead find humans or screaming, lashed astropaths to the foul interior walls of their ships, carving demonic runes into their flesh, branding them, cutting them, and allowing their psychic energy and souls to be consumed. Their emotions pouring into the immaterium until their bodies are disintegrating, riddled with black stinking cancers and foul liquids pouring from their orifices.
Oh God, what the
When it comes to interacting with the warp, it's very much a case of actions speak louder than words. And if that means flaying the skin off of so many humans that are captured onto your ship until the deck is literally awash with blood and your entire room is strung up with skins lashed all around the place, then that's exactly what you're going to do if you want to be able to communicate with your demon spirit in the warp. And that is, by the way,
just the most fucked up telephone I've ever seen.
An actual example. The Emperor sought to eradicate religion and spiritual superstition because he feared what he already knew, that the forces of chaos lay waiting out among the stars. This is why his arguments to Uriah were so hollow. He had little in the way of sincerity for his specious beliefs. The Emperor knew from his own experience what awaited humanity, and a society open to the concepts of religion and spiritual beings would be far more easily tempted than one who operated from a position of logic and reasoning.
Yeah, that's true, but like, that's also so like, yes, he feared that people would turn to the Chaos God and worship them, but not telling them makes them like they will get blindsided or whatever you say. Like, they won't expect it then. It's even
Some
worse.
religious sects could empower the beings of the Immaterium not through their worship, but by their associated actions. And a society open to worship could easily be manipulated into worshipping a cult or organized religion.
Yeah.
It was not openly worshipping one of the gods of chaos. It may not have even been aware that it was, but this is how chaos operates: manipulation and half-truths.
Yeah.
The Emperor had two choices before.
Yeah, the Emperor as well, though.
For him, the path of the light
also
and the path of the dark. No matter his agreements in principle with the gods of chaos, he had chosen the path of light for humanity, and he did not want to end up in a situation where his imperial truth could be surreptitiously replaced by the primordial truth. The terrors of the past.
What is the primordial truth? I probably missed that in a video. I don't remember.
Superstition and false belief. If the human future was to survive its rebirth, it could not tolerate the delusions of the past.
Yeah.
The arguably greatest deception the Emperor ever imposed on humanity was the imperial truth. The truth that was, of course, in fact, a lie.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, there we go, the primordial truth. Okay, never mind. You're probably already typing. Stop typing now.
The Emperor knew this was all a lie. He had known this since before the unification, from before the Age of Strife, before the fall of mankind during the Dark Age of technology. The lie being that the spirits, gods, entities, call them whatever you will, but do not deny their existence beyond our realm of perception. It is simple enough, after all, to believe. Some would have it that the imperial truth was never a lie. Mock these fools. Shun them. For they would entangle themselves and yourself in blinkered fallacious arguments and word-splitting games until you both were drowning in self-consuming ignorance, dragged down under the weight of their self-imposed obfuscation. These architects of confusion are to be dismissed and ignored.
Wow.
The primordial truth was simple and clear.
Yeah, what is it?
Humanity at one time would have called it hell, or the underworld. It was creation's shadow. It was the layer behind the stars. It was chaos, and it was real.
Wow, yeah, okay, so the primordial truth is just that the warp exists. Okay. Of course it does. You know, I will do a video on the warp someone asked me to do it because there are like time travel things in there, and they wanted my opinion as a physicist on that. And I will talk about quantum physics in there as well, because some of the stuff here would, like, it's not, of course, still fantasy, a lot of it, but there are some interesting points where it parallels some quantum physical phenomena and effects, and I will go a bit physicist in that video. Can't wait to do it. Expect it next year in January or February, I think. I don't know when I will have, like today I can record a lot because I've got the daughter that sleeps a lot, so she's been pretty nice today. But if I don't get her and my wife cuddles this one and I get the other one to cuddle, that one might interrupt my recordings a lot, and I can't do long things there, so let's see. But I will give you that video. So
to live in harmonic union with the powers of chaos. It is to accept reality, to embrace power over terror. Without the gods, humanity will die, piece by piece, under the predation of aliens that lay claim to the galaxy. Those who remain will die as the Eldar died, in agony, unable to see the primordial truth before their very eyes.
Do the Tyranids have something like a chaos force behind them? Like, are there chaos Tyranids, so to speak? Canids. I'm sorry, I don't know. Chaos Tyranids. That might actually be, like, because they have a swarm intelligence, and that thing could be coupled to the warp, I think. Just thinking here.
This is fate. It is written in the stars.
Okay.
I feel it's worth reminding everyone at this point that the Emperor, if we're using people's preferred shaman analogy for his inception, was...
I know that's not people's preferred one, but his preferred one. You don't need to. I know.
originally produced out of a fear that the warp would become dramatically more hostile, which it ultimately would. That without this shaman's intervention, the human race would be consumed by the spiritual psychic creatures of the warp. Given the origins, it's not surprising that the Emperor would choose the path of light for humanity, as opposed to the path of darkness. At the same time, this image of him as a benevolent protector seems fundamentally misplaced. The Emperor is ruthless, and more than willing to achieve his plan.
He is a benevolent protector for humanity, not for humans.
By whatever means. An entirely fallible individual as well. Those worshippers of the Emperor, the most loyal and the most faithful, would have you believe that everything that comes to pass is part of the Emperor's grand plan, or at the very least workable around his long-term intentions. It's difficult to see how that can be true. If anything, the Emperor's persistent declarations that he was just a man, despite all of the evidence of his great powers, seems significantly disingenuous. Yet one feature of him seems certainly true when it comes to assertions, that being his judgment. The Emperor displayed an arrogance that has perhaps always been present in him since his birth, assuming that he could triumph permanently over the gods of the Chaos realm.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
The Emperor knew the primordial truth from the very beginning. He had already visited the gods of Chaos millennia before his unification.
Oh, he did,
and had
really?
begun enforcing his declaration that all his followers obey the imperial truth. Some would say that this was part of the Emperor's grand plan, although he had some miraculous plan of ascension for humanity. Maybe that he planned in the fullness of time to either starve...
ascension of humanity to a next plane. Also in my horror stories, there's the next plane that a race has ascended to. You're interested in stuff like that, check it out. Self-advertisement over again.
Destroy or permanently protect humanity from the gods of the warp. Anything is possible, and we currently have nowhere near enough information to make that determination. But anyone who would at this point put their unquestioning faith in the Emperor should seriously take some time to re-examine the facts of the matter. The Emperor operates from a position of just taking whatever action is necessary. Unfortunately, sometimes that means getting your hands dirty, the end justifying the means and so forth. Desperate times call for desperate measures. But does the desperation of humanity warrant the casual slaughter of so many innocents?
That is the question as well. What do you mean by you do it for humanity? Yes, it is the race in a way, but is it also not its values? Like, we have compassion and stuff like that. We also have the darkness, but for all of those values, the good and the bad ones, that's humanity. And Yeah, I don't know. Are those the values he wants? What, like, I don't know that, but
humanity
doesn't seem to
asked
really.
For the emperor. They were subjected to his campaigns of brutal violence, subjugated. Any resistance to the emperor's order was met with sickening violence. During the Crusades, the emperor saw much success and many resolutions without a shot being fired, but there were plenty more where this was not the case. And if the emperor's abhorrent war crimes on terror were anything to go by, it was no small misstep. I've often heard it said that the situation that occurred with the Interrex was not one of the emperor's making. Yet I ask myself, wasn't it? The Interrex, one of the few empires of humanity to survive the Age of Strife, seemingly intact and in an advanced state of technology.
Really?
Its warriors wearing similar armour to Astartes, and proving more than just a challenge for multiple legions. They had working STC systems. They should have been a bounty and a prize for not just the Emperor, but for humanity. In another time, the Interrex could have potentially been far superior saviours of humanity. They already seem to have an established rational order of logic and science and reasoning about their culture. The Emperor's forces in the Crusades, when you really look at it, not so much. Perhaps if they had some way to know what was coming their way,
is there more lore on them?
Prepared and mounted their own crusade, even becoming more successful than the Emperor's forces. It's unlikely, but it's just worth remembering that the Interrex were there and they were doing just fine. They didn't ask for or want to be part of the Imperium or the Imperial Truth. Horus, already turning away from the Emperor, instigated the war with the Interrex. And it's not entirely without the influence of chaos that things ended up how they did.
Interesting.
But again, Horus turning away from the light does not leave the Emperor blameless. Given what we know now, it seems the Emperor simply made a terrible miscalculation in not bestowing his Primarchs with the truth of the events that had taken place up to the point of his crusade.
So how can he claim he sees the golden path if he can't see it? Obviously, like, yeah, he's been trolled by something.
You can
probably
understand the Emperor's desire to reduce more religion so as to not give the Chaos Gods an easy win by laying open the likelihood of some forms of worship and the associated acts that would strengthen them in the warp. It's even understandable that the Emperor simply wanted a path away from this kind of superstition and to try to get back to the way things were for humanity during the Golden Age. The Emperor wants to return mankind to its place of power, its zenith of understanding and rationalism. In his efforts to achieve this, it's entirely...
But he must have been alive there. Like, what happened? Why didn't he stop it from collapsing, this age? I know it was the warp that, like, was responsible, but couldn't he have somehow done something, at least preserved, like, an isle of it? It's weird. Doesn't seem... Like, he probably didn't see it coming.
It's possible that he was just trying to get there too quickly and taking shortcuts to achieve what he could have done with a longer, more steady conquest. And there may have been in actuality no perfect solution to all of this. The Emperor was doing the best he could under impossibly difficult circumstances.
Yeah, but he wasn't all knowing.
Something I've often heard as well is if the Emperor survived through the Golden Age and had these genetic laboratories and so on, why did he not keep an STC or two to boost humanity back to the Golden Age?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Because from how STCs are portrayed, it certainly would have been a quick fix for regaining the lost technology and bringing humanity back from the edge of annihilation. Why the Emperor seemingly did not have any kind of complete STC stored away or in his possession is of course unknowable for us.
Yeah, that's so weird. That's perhaps even a plot hole, actually.
We could make a few speculations. As I discussed before in my previous narrative about STCs, despite them being portrayed as the Holy Grail, perhaps in actuality STCs are just not all they're cracked up to be. It seems beyond strange that if they were these holy grails of all human knowledge, that the Emperor would not have thought to himself, I'd better get myself one of these, just in case. Now another possibility, maybe they were rarer than
probably he was just a vain asshole, not vain, a prideful asshole. He was like, I can do it without. That's like my headcanon now, but it feels a bit like a plot hole.
Descriptions would believe. The war with the Men of Iron, from what we've learned, doesn't sound as if it just exploded overnight. So if things were turning bad again, you might imagine the Emperor would see the writing was on the wall and secure an STC. The other rationale could be that, as I've said, the Emperor is far more capable of making mistakes, and his ability to foresee the future is nowhere near as powerful as we're led to believe.
Yeah, it isn't.
He does get very clear visions.
No, it's not. Like, from all I've heard today and, like, a year ago in the other videos, no. He's not, like, he can't see the future. he's being trolled or something.
Many of very specific events. This is often used as a crutch to explain away the whole heresy, and the Horus battle with the Emperor was all part of his master plans. So if you are to assume he knew all, he would have known Horus would betray him and allow events to play out as they did. Perhaps for some greater purpose.
I don't think so. It would also undervalue the story. I don't like villains that are always like, oh, I planned all of this. Save for Eisen, I love Eisen.
We could assume that perhaps the Chaos Gods extended their powers to blind or to cover things from the Emperor. We know that very powerful psychic manipulation is possible to hide the truth of things. It's been used on many occasions by both loyalists and traitors, hiding ships, fleets, entire moons. Some consider that the Emperor is far more powerful than any can imagine, that all of his actions are according to a grand plan that he's forged over millennia, and that he will still lead humanity to the light out of the darkness.
I mean, that's an easy out, like, for the writers a bit. Like, it's basically the Doctor Strange scene. I saw all possible futures and this is... Didn't like that as well. Like, because it was like just to shut people up. Like, but why didn't they do this? Yeah, he saw it wouldn't have worked. Like, it's, I don't know.
He will
don't know. It devalues the story, I think. I didn't like this scene.
Ascension of mankind. How this would be achieved, however, remains entirely unclear. Some speculate that his plan was to lead all of mankind into the webway, out of the grasp of chaos, yet this is more than off the table after it was breached and the war in the webway fought, with it finally being sealed as the Emperor is permanently interred on the Golden Throne.
That is true.
If all I have said has not convinced you, then perhaps the Emperor himself will have to speak for me.
Yes.
Because when all is said and done, the Emperor could see he had failed humanity.
Oh god, yeah, he looks so effed.
It's why he was forced to create the Order of the Grey Knights and the Inquisition. And the Emperor described the Grey Knights thusly: one unbreakable shield against the coming darkness, one last blade forged in defiance of fate. Let them be my legacy to the galaxy I conquered, and my final gift to the species I failed.
The species.
Now, the words of the Emperor here always strike me as especially troubling. It's not his admission of failure that bothers me, it's the words forged in defiance of fate. This suggests that the Emperor seemingly knew that this was destined to pass, that it was inevitable. Perhaps he could see all that was to come after all. He could see what was coming, yet was unable to alter the path, ultimately resigning himself to admitting failure. He had tried to alter humanity's fate, but failed.
Wow, that's so sad. But I would love that actually the most, I think. Like, I say that now, like, it's instinctually a bit. I have to think more about it, but, like, currently, like, hunch, I think that's probably, I hope it's that.
And two chaotic demons.
Because I think there is this, like, a thing about cosmic horror, and there is cosmic horror, of course, like in Warhammer, of course it is. For me, the most interesting thing is the inevitability as a terror. And like, there is no good and evil, there is just inevitability and fighting it, and most of the time failing. I think that's the core of cosmic horror, at least. And I think, like, it doesn't have to be cosmic horror here, but because I love it so much, I want it to be cosmic horror here, and that would mean, all failed still. Inevitability fucked you again.
And speaking the primordial truth, the inescapable truth. The Eldar failed when their test came, but humanity still had the choice to make. That humanity needed to open itself to chaos, as much as chaos needed the more powerfully resonating souls of humanity to fuel it in the material. The Emperor had already spoken about how dangerously narrow the path of humanity was when he spoke with Uriah, the Church of the Lightning Stone, in their final words. Didn't you just tell me of the bloody slaughters perpetuated by crusaders? Said Uriah. Doesn't that make you no better than the holy men you were telling me about? The difference is, I know I am right, said the Emperor. Spoken like a true autocrat, the Emperor shook his head. You misunderstand, Uriah. I've seen the narrow survival path that is all that stands between humanity and extinction.
Yeah, perhaps he also saw it, but the Chaos Gods distorted it again, like something like that.
This is the way it must begin.
Inevitability, that would be the best thing in my mind if it was that. It was inevitable.
The Emperor knew that the path they were walking was an extremely narrow one, which had a very limited chance of success. His final acts, much like his other decisions, seemed to be that of a man making the best choices he could given the cards he was holding at the time, trying his best to put right what once went wrong. The primordial truth, though, is a troubling issue. In one sense, it's the simple admission that the Chaos Gods and their realm exist. I personally feel it runs much deeper than that. The impression I have had from the demons who
that looks so awesome, the battlefield.
It's much more than just an admission of existence.
Adeptus Authoritas sister there are so cool. I love them.
We cannot exist
Looks
or
so cool.
survive without its help.
I love
like
angels
not, the
like as warriors.
The Imperium are inexorably linked. It's a symbiotic relationship that began at the dawn of man. Perhaps the Emperor could foresee the end times through his immense psychic power, and what he saw he could not accept. It set him inevitably on a path to save humanity from the darkness. As he described it, humanity was never meant for darkness. Only in the light can it achieve its full potential. When the suffocating shadows
and that's
of
the
religion
mistake, you need both light and dark.
Is gone from this world, we will see
otherwise you have
brilliance.
chaos.
In these words, I think we can understand the Emperor's vision.
Oh wow, those shield bases look cool anyway.
The grasp of the Chaos Gods. He had seen mankind at the highest point in its existence, and he had seen it fall. But he knew that no other race in the galaxy deserved to rule more than man. He was obsessed with making his vision a reality, no matter what the cost. This approach unfortunately imbued itself into humanity, where the ruthless achieve your goals by any cost approach would become fundamental to the Imperium's operation. Not forgetting,
and
of course,
that's human
perhaps
and all it is.
Unintended consequence of forbidding religion, which would later ironically become one of its most powerful strengths. The Emperor had feared that religious worship and faith would risk destroying humanity by making it susceptible to the beliefs and corruptions of the Immaterium, when in actuality the faith and unquestioning belief in the God Emperor of mankind would become its most powerful weapon. Lorgar, it seems, had been right all along.
Lorgar.
Religious worship of the Emperor provided a far surer way to bind humanity together than rational thinking and science. The imperial truth would be eroded and people turned to faith. This would ultimately lead to the imperial...
Because that's the thing, because there's no real truth in science, as I said, you can always argue about it. Look at flat earthers. They do that. Like, I don't know.
Cult, replacing the Emperor's imperial truth, and the Adeptus Ministorum, the ecclesiarchy, would become a powerful component of the Imperium. Ultimately though, while the worship of the Emperor enabled humanity to wield a powerfully binding force that was an anathema to the forces seeking to corrupt humanity, mankind's relapse into state religious worship would in time return it to a decaying, ignorant and superstitious society of ever more extreme positions, where tyrannical leaders and the abandonment of scientific progress halted humanity's advancement dead. Was this the Emperor's vision after all?
I don't think so.
Not the darkness of chaos, but the darkness of mankind's own inability to disconnect itself from superstition and faith. Such things had left
inability,
worshipping
you can't, like that will always be.
Stone. Perhaps humanity during the golden age of mankind's greatest achievement was not their zenith levels of technology after all. Their greatest achievement was simply that they had reached a time where they were able to step out of the darkness, to abandon religion, spirituality, superstition, mysticism, and faith. They allowed themselves to ascend into a world of pure rationalism, science, logic, and order.
That's not a good world. It's not. You can't, like, because they like, that's a faulty word, unfortunately. Like, I like that idea as a science I do, but that would fail. It would. Like, you need values, and you might not need religion, but you need values that are not science. Because in science, there's just evidence, no proof. And so you have belief there as well a bit. I don't know. Anyway,
belief
I've talked about it.
Truth in the modern age of the Imperium was now a literal death sentence. Any heretics who opposed the worship of the Emperor of Man must be purged from society.
Wow,
So, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
Wow. Almost cool. Really like it. Oh, we've got, what's his name? Yarrick? I need the Yarrick video. I still have that to do. See? Anyway, that was cool. I loved that. Like, it was a bit, I hope it wasn't too similar to Last Church Reaction, but I could think about things again I love. And I love this video. Shamanic thing was a bit too much pushed again. But, some awesome questions again. And so we are finished with the Emperor of Man series now after a year. I know there's a 3.1. I might watch that if you want me to, tell me in the comments. But other than that, that's awesome. I like the way The Last Church was contextualized here. If you agree or disagree with things I said, let me know. And I hope you have a great day, great next year. And as always, take care of yourself, consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and check out my horror story. Again, it's like, I think you might like it if you like Warhammer, like my horror series. Link in the comments. My daughter's now getting hungry, I think, so I will feed her. I hope you have a great evening. See you soon. Bye. Take care. Also, if you want to support my horror content, check out Volume 1 of my horror series called Remnants of the Old Truth, which is available for free as an audiobook on Vidith22's horror channel. Link is pinned in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.